We're going to start now with Eliphaz's second speech with Job. And I'll remind you again, Eliphaz, Zophar, Bildad are not wicked men. They're devoted men, they're dedicated men, they're sincere, deeply religious men, friends of Job. He wouldn't have had any other kind of friend. So keep a good attitude toward Eliphaz. Please. Yeah, you'll understand why Gary said please in a minute. Job 15. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, should a wise man, like me, respond to vain knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he argue with worthless talk and words in which he finds no good, like yours? He's the wise man. Job's the guy with worthless talk in his mind. Should he argue, or should I argue, with worthless talk and words in which he finds no good? Yea, you have repudiated fear. That's the fear of God. And withheld devotion from God. That's why he's talking so bluntly to Job. He thinks Job is misjudging and misspeaking about God. For your iniquity instructs your mouth, and you choose the language of crafty men. Your own mouth condemns you, and not I. Yea, your own lips testify against you. Every time you say you are innocent, you're insulting God's intelligence and ours, because we know you've got a secret sin somewhere. If you just come clean, you can be forgiven and everything will be fine. You'll be rich again. Like me. Everybody in heaven and earth knows, Job, that God does not treat a righteous man the way he's treating you. Everybody knows that. Are you the first man born? Or were you brought forth before the hills? I mean, it's been that way since the beginning. It's been the way that I see it from the beginning. Job was not born before the hills. He wasn't the first man. He wasn't Adam. But he was a figure of the Son of God. God made him that in this process. Like Moses, like David, like others in the Bible, Abraham, Joseph. Like Job, God's Son was perfect. Look at this verse in 1 Peter 2. Christ also suffered for us, leaving you an example that you should follow in His footsteps, who committed no sin, neither was deceit found in His mouth. And like Job, God caused His perfect Son to suffer horribly. Yes. Isaiah 53. It pleased the Lord to crush Him. He has put Him to grief. He will see the travail of His soul and be satisfied. And just like Job, at the height of Jesus' sufferings, he wanted to know why God had forsaken him. Matthew 27, then, about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me? And if you read the book of Psalms, many times the Son of God, foretelling of His life on earth, is talking about the times He prayed and God didn't answer. How long am I going to have to go through this, oh God? Forever, He says. There are a lot of places in Psalms like that. And just like Job, in the end, God has restored to His Son everything, all the glory He'd ever had. John 17, this is Jesus' prayer before He left here. I glorified you on earth. I've finished the work that you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me to be at your side with the glory I used to have with you before the universe existed. And He did. Peter preached it, Paul preached it, Jesus has been exalted above the heavens. That's where he was to start with. He created the heavens. He was above them.
He was in the beginning.
Now, proud and bold, because bold in the knowledge of God that Eliphaz thought he had, sarcasm just drips out of his mouth. I told you last time, even when you think somebody is bad, there's no excuse to treat them bad. Well, Eliphaz didn't know that very much, I don't think. He said, have you listened in on the privy counsel of God? Or do you have a monopoly on wisdom? What do you know that we don't know? What understanding do you have that is not in us? Both the hoary-headed and aged are with us, much older than your father. How about that? We got some old men here, and they're all agreeing with us. Now, I thought I'd take time out. Since God made Job a prophetic figure of his son, I invited a special guest here, Gary Eliphaz Savelli, to ask Jesus those questions. Because really those questions are directed toward the Lord. Come here and stand right here, Eliphaz. And you ask those questions, and this is what the Son of God would answer them.
Have you listened in on the privy counsel of God?
Yes.
Or do you have a monopoly on wisdom?
Pretty much, along with my father.
What do you know that we do not know?
Just about everything.
Well, what understanding do you have that's not in us?
I am understanding, and I'm in nobody yet.
Both the hoary-headed and aged are with us.
I know, I created them.
Much older than your father.
I don't think so. Thank you, Eliphaz. Anybody that God used as a symbol like that, those questions really apply to the Son. But they didn't know about the Son. So they thought they had a corner on wisdom. Good job, Eliphaz. Then Eliphaz does something very interesting. He refers to that spirit that visited him at night and spoke to him, and rebuking Job for not heeding the message of that vision as Eliphaz interpreted it to him. Were the consolations of God too little for you, or the word he spoke gently to you? Why does your heart take you away, and what do your eyes wink at, that your spirit should turn against God, and that you allow such words to come out of your mouth? What is man that he should be clean, or that one born of woman should be righteous? Behold, he puts no trust in his holy ones. And this is that's along with his vision. Because in Job 4, in that vision, Satan said this to Eliphaz. And he didn't say, I'm Satan. He just appeared. He said, I didn't know who it was. Behold, God puts no trust in his servants and charges his angels with folly. That's where Eliphaz got that from. Now, I just want to bring up a little question here. And that is that true? Does God actually charge his angels with foolishness? The way that spirit said to Eliphaz. Everything else he said to Eliphaz, Job agreed with in other places. But is that true? Did that comment reflect how God felt toward his angels? Or did it reflect proud Satan's view of the angels? You know, we found in Psalm 50 that Satan thinks that God is just like him. Because God never reproved anything that Satan knew God knew was in his heart. He never reproved him for it. And if he, being so proud, looked on lesser creatures like the angels that were under him and man that was under him, and he would have considered them all foolish compared to him, so was he saying really what God thought or what he thought? He may have been right. He may have been right. Maybe God did charge his angels with foolishness. But if he did, it was in love, like a father to his children, not for the attitude Satan would have had. That's just a question I thought I'd throw out there to you. He puts no trust in his holy ones, and the heavens are not clean in his sight. And that much is true. They may have gotten that from the same vision, because in Psalm 13, David said, "Who is like the Lord our God, who makes his home on high? He abases himself to look at what is in heaven as well as on earth." So yeah, the heavens aren't clean in his sight. He abases himself to even look at it. How much less a vile and corrupt man who drinks iniquity like water. So Satan may have been saying something true to Eliphaz. I just thought you'd want to think about that. But remember this. Whenever an ungodly soul tells you things that are factually true, always look for the hidden snare in it. When the serpent told Eve that if she ate that fruit, she'd be like God, knowing good and evil, that was true. Factually true. But there was a hidden snare in it. Remember that. There is much more, I think I mentioned this last time, there is much more to telling the truth than making factually accurate statements. The impression that you leave people with is actually what you have said. And that's what God's going to judge you by. In an earthly courtroom, you can get by with a crime if you've said nothing but what is factually true. But you don't get by with God like that. That's why when David sent Joab a message, and he told his captain, and the Ammonites killed that righteous servant of David that he wanted to die. When Nathan came into David, he said, "You killed Uriah." Yeah. That's God's judgment. That's the way God judged. So don't justify yourself in anything evil by saying, I just said the right thing. That flies in human courts, but it doesn't fly with God. Then Eliphaz goes on, verse 17, "I will teach you. Listen to me, for I have seen this, and I will declare that which wise men have reported from their fathers and have not hidden. To them," that is their fathers, the ancient guys, "to them alone was the earth given, and no strange thing passed through their midst." He's talking about very ancient times, to the men that God first gave the world to. He's referring to them to try to teach Job again about God's righteous judgment throughout history. "All the days of a wicked man he writhes in pain." The way you're suffering, Job, does that sound familiar to you? Is that just a coincidence? "Though a number of years is laid up for the ruthless man, the sound of terrors is in his ears." You've been ruthless. "In prosperity the destroyer comes upon him." The destroyer could be what Job called Rahab. They didn't know the name of who was in charge of all this under God. But they were right to call him Rahab, because that means proud and mighty one, strong. But they were right to call him the destroyer, because look at what he did to Job's life. Whatever title that creature had, he had done it. Eliphaz is saying, for a long time, Job, you thought you were getting by, but your sin has finally caught up with you. God has finally exposed you. And he always does. He does not have faith. Job does not have faith to turn from darkness. And so he is marked for the sword. He wanders about for bread, asking, where is it? He knows that the day of darkness has been prepared by his hand. Distress terrifies him. Anguish, like a king prepared for the attack, overpowers him. For he stretched out his hand against God and vaunted himself against the Almighty, running at him stiff-necked with his bossed shields, like you did, Job, like you've been doing. Yea, he covered his face with his fatness and added blubber about his loins. But he dwells now in devastated cities with its houses which men do not occupy, ordained to be heaps of rubble. He will not be rich, nor will his wealth last, nor will their possessions spread out over the land, like you, Job. He will not depart from darkness like you, Job. You won't admit what you've done. A flame shall dry out his branch, and he will depart along with the breath of his mouth. And that's a reference to Job's asthma-like symptoms. You're having a hard time catching your breath. You're struggling. Feel like you're dying. Well, this is why, Job. Oh, that he would not trust in vanity. That's what he's saying about Job. He is deceiving himself, but his reward will be vanity. It shall be paid in full before his time, and his branch will not be green. Like you, Job. You're going to die early. Your children are gone. He will shake off his unripe grapes, that's his children, like a vine, and he will cast off his blossom like an olive tree. That's sad, Job, losing all your children so soon, dying early. Yea, a profane congregation is barren, and fire consumes the tents of bribery. You know, Paul said your life is hidden with Christ in God. And those that are walking in darkness who hate you are going to throw rocks out of the darkness trying to hit you.
Yeah.
You're evil. You're a false prophet. You're an occult. They're throwing rocks trying to find where you are, but your life is hidden with Christ in God. Amen. That's what Eliphaz is trying to do with Job. He's trying to hit the bill. And he knows there's something there. Maybe it's bribery. He conceived trouble and gave birth to iniquity, for their inward part was preparing treachery. Like you, Job, right? Waiting for Job to say, yeah, I did it. But Job doesn't budge. And that's it for Eliphaz's spiel that time. Then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. Will there ever be an end to long-winded speeches? Or what illness do you have that you would even give an answer? I could also speak as you do if your souls were in my soul's place. I could string words together against you and shake my head at you. But I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips would bring you relief. And then he's just talking, not to Eliphaz in general, just talking. If I speak, my pain is not relieved. And if I forbear, what pain of mine leaves? Surely he has now exhausted me. That is, surely this is as much as my body and my soul can take. I'm done. There's nothing else. I have nothing else to give. And then Job, as he's done several times already, just turns to God and starts talking. You have made all my company desolate. Now he speaks later about how all his relatives and friends have deserted him, but he's also speaking about his three friends who are desolate of wisdom and a word from God that would help him. You have shriveled me up. It has become a witness against me. Yea, my own leanness has risen up against me. On my face it testifies. But his leanness does testify, but it doesn't testify against him the way he said. It doesn't do that. What it's doing is testifying for him and telling everybody, this man would rather die than get ahead of the Spirit of God. Yeah. He has chosen to stick with his righteousness until he heard from God or die. He's that bad off. It's testifying to everyone who's around Job that he would rather die. He would rather wait on God than live. He said earlier, I've esteemed His word more than my necessary food. He's waiting on God. He's miserable. He's lost everything. He's in pain day and night. He can't sleep. He can't keep anything on his stomach. We'll read about that. Just miserable with a burning inside all the time. Plus having his wife turn on him, his servants leave him, his friends abandon him, and these friends there trying to help him, and everything they say makes it worse. Yeah. His anger has ripped me to shreds. Yet he continues to hate me. Now this is a wrong thought. God does not hate Job. But Job can't imagine it being any other way. Does love treat people like this? If God loved him, would he do him like this? No, he must hate him. That's all Job can think. He has gnashed on me with his teeth. My adversary keeps sharpening his eyes at me. He sees God as acting as a relentless adversary who is not satisfied with just destroying his life. He wants to torment him and not let him die. Even after he's completely ruined his life, he's not letting up. Then Job tells us a few specific things that he's going through, mentions them. Men have gaped at me with their mouths. That's like Jesus, Psalm 22. Everyone who sees me ridicules me. They smirk, they shake their head. They opened their mouth like a lion, tearing and roaring at me. And then Job says, they have struck my cheeks with contempt. They mass together against me. That's what Job was being treated like this. That's like Jesus. Isaiah 50, I gave my back to the strikers and my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. In Zechariah 13, that Jesus quoted at the Last Supper. So we know this applies to Jesus. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, even against the mighty one who is my fellow, says the Lord of hosts. See, God's calling the sword to his son. Strike this shepherd, and the flock will be scattered. God has handed me over to an unjust one and thrust me into the clutches of wicked men. And that's pretty true. God's turned him over to some creature, Rahab, destroyer, unjust one, whoever. And because of him, all my herds are gone, all my riches are gone, all my children are gone, all my slaves are gone, my wife's turned against me. These friends that I've trusted for years are abusing me. God has turned me over to that creature. I was prospering, yet he tore me apart. That's exactly what Eliphaz said to him in the last chapter. In prosperity, the destroyer comes upon him. Job is not denying that. He's not saying the destroyer hasn't come. Yeah. He's saying, I was prosperous, just like you say, and the destroyer has come, just like you say, and look what he's done to me. Yea, he seized me by the neck and dashed me to pieces. He's talking about God now, and he set me up as his target. All that's true. Job knows it's true. His archers are around me. He slices open my kidneys, yet shows no pity. He pours out my gall to the earth. All that is true. Nothing's wrong about that. Job knows this is happening to him. He breaks me open with breach upon breach. His skin's burst in different places from the boils and the worms crawling on him. My goodness. He runs over me like a mighty man. All that's true. I have sewn sackcloth upon my skin and buried my horn in the dust. That means Job has been as contrite and as humble as he knows how. By his horn, he means whatever good thing he had in his life, his prominence in the community, like Psalm 92 says, your enemies, O Lord, will perish. All workers of iniquity will be scattered, but you will exalt my horn. I shall be anointed with fresh oil. God exalts your horn, you're blessed, and you're happy, and you're free. My face is contorted from my weeping. This has gone on for months now. And on my eyelids is the shadow of death. Even though there is no cruelty in my hands, my prayer is pure. He never wavered from that, not one moment. O earth, do not cover over my blood, and let there be no place for my cry. That is, no place for it to die away. He wants his cry to keep echoing through the generations. And God heard that prayer. That's why we have the book of Job.
Yes.
Righteous
Even now, behold, my witness is in heaven. Now, Job's witness is God who's beating him up. Because God is the only one who knows that he has not sinned. Everybody on earth thinks he has, that cares about it one way or the other. And my advocate, that's your attorney. My attorney is on high. God's also his attorney. Nobody on earth will stand up for him and defend him against God. Who could? So his witness is in heaven that he would like to call into court.
Yeah.
And his attorney is in heaven who's not answering his phone calls. To get the witness to come. Job has nobody. And God is silent. My friends ridicule me. To God my eyes pour out tears. Oh, that one might argue for a man with God as a man does for his fellow. When the number of years are come, then I shall go the way from which I shall not return. That's it. That's what Eliphaz said. That's what was so confusing for decades trying to understand Job. They kept saying the same thing back and forth. But they had a different view of that thing they said. In Job 15, Eliphaz said, all the days of the wicked man he writhes in pain, like you, Job. Though the number of years is laid up for the ruthless man, the sound of terrors is in his ears. It's just sad. Job 17, he keeps talking to God. My spirit is broken. My days are snuffed out. The graves are ready for me. Let God damn me if deceivers are not here with me. He knows they're wrong. Yea, my eye passes the night with their disputations. They keep him up, trying to persuade him to repent. And if they do fall asleep, Satan won't let him have any peace. He'll remind him in his sleep. He's tormented in his sleep. Put up a pledge, I pray, for me with you. Now that's, well, who else can strike hands with me? In other words, who else would do it? Shake hands with me and make a deal. That's the equivalent of taking an oath on the Bible that you're going to tell the truth. He's wanting God to put up something so he can enter into this legal thing with him, so he has to testify. Okay, God, where were you on the night of the 12th? You saw what I did. He's really desperate. No one on earth can testify for him. No one else will stand up for him. They'll stand up against him. For you have hidden their hearts from understanding. Therefore you will not exalt them. Job still believes that at some point God's righteous judgment will condemn his friends. He still believes at some point, sometime, righteous judgment is going to prevail. And then he tells us something that we don't know from anywhere else. He says something about Eliphaz, and probably the other guys too, but he's responding to Eliphaz's speech right now. He said he keeps friends informed for reward. His other friends may be guilty, but he's discerning that Eliphaz is carrying the report of these conversations to those in the town there, and he's playing a part in Job losing all his good reputation for the reward of the praise of men and honor in society. Make himself look good and Job look like he thinks Job is evil. But the eyes of his sons shall fail. Job believes absolutely in God's justice, that every person will reap just as they have sown. He just can't understand what has happened that could be this unjust. completely confused. Yea, he, that is Eliphaz, has made me a byword of the people. I am one whose face is used for spitting, like Jesus. Isaiah 50, I did not hide my face from shame or spit. 7, verse 7, Job says, my eye has grown dim with grief. That's like Jesus. He was despised and rejected by men in Isaiah 53. A man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He was like one hiding his face from us. He was despised and we did not value him. And Job says, my members are like a shadow, all of them. That's like Jesus. Psalm 22, my strength is dried up like a potsherd, like a dry old piece of broken pottery. And my tongue is stuck to my palate. Yea, you have brought me to the dust of death. Dogs encompass me. The congregation of the wicked encircle me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They gaze and stare at me. Then Job says, the upright will be appalled at this, and the innocent will rouse himself against the profane man. Job knew that if any godly soul, any time in the future, ever found out what he's been through, what his friends have put him through, what God's put him through, they would be appalled to know that God would do such a thing. It reminds me of when elderly Sister Abbott, sweet old lady in Henderson, was down praying, and a man had sneaked in her house and attacked her and murdered her, cut her to pieces, stabbed her I don't know how many times. Shook the whole town up, and my mother said to me, I didn't think God would ever let something like that happen. Nobody in town did. You don't know what God will and won't do. Job said, the righteous man holds fast to his way, and clean hands increase in strength. In Job's view, a truly righteous man does not cave in to unrighteous pressures, but he gets stronger in his righteousness. He's going to hold on to his righteousness no matter what, which is exactly the opposite of what God wants him to do. God is pressuring Job to get him to let go of his righteousness so he can reveal his righteousness to Job. That's the whole point of his test. To get Job to the point of letting go of his ignorance about God, letting go of his own righteousness so that he can have a foretaste of the kind of righteousness the Son of God was going to come reveal to mankind and pay the price for us to have it. The last thing Job will do is give up his righteousness, and that's what God's waiting for. And he's using Satan to get him to do it, and Satan was sure he would do it by cursing God, but Job didn't do that. He held on to his righteousness until he just gave it all up, and God said, good. Now, how does this feel? It's like David. David murdered a godly, righteous man to hide the fact that he had committed adultery with that man's wife. And when he was miserable, all my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long as I kept silent. David was miserable with his sin. Day and night he was being eaten up by it. And God sent a prophet in there, Nathan, and told him about a man who was guilty of that. And David said, that man's going to die. And Nathan said, you are the man. Whew, what a relief that was. But first of all, David said, I've got to die. I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said, you shall not die. God has put away your sin. Now that was impossible under the law. If you committed adultery, if you committed murder, there was no sacrifice for that sin. You were a gone gosling. You were dead. God said, even if he comes and grabs the horn of my altar for mercy, drag him away and kill him. David knew he was a dead man. But God took away that sin, put it away, and David became a mystery to himself. 90% of Israel never believed it happened. They didn't believe Nathan. They didn't believe David. They ended up in civil war and the nation divided in two later, north against south, because they didn't believe it. But David had been touched with New Testament mercy. What Paul preached in Acts 13, we can be forgiven for things that the law didn't forgive us for. Preached that to a synagogue of Jews. That's New Testament mercy. My. Job was going to be touched by just a touch of that New Testament grace and righteousness and humility of God. The whole thing was driving Job toward it. And Job was clinging to his righteousness with everything that was in him because he thought that was his salvation, instead of understanding that God was his salvation. Let go. And let the righteousness of God come in. Anyway, that's the end of the story.
So good.
There were a few people that were touched with New Testament. I mean, just a drop of New Testament something or other. Mercy on David, wisdom on Solomon. The new bodies that we're going to get. Moses got a glimpse of it up on Mount Sinai. Nobody ever looked at Moses' face again. He wore a veil the rest of his life. But they all became mysteries to themselves because God had touched them with something that was illegal, that was unknown, unimaginable. But God did that so they'd all be prophetic symbols of His Son. And they are. Anyway, at Job 9, verse 9 there, when he says, the righteous man holds fast to his way, and clean hands increase in strength. Nevertheless, you will come back, all of them, all of you, going to come back at me, I know. So come on if you want, but I will not find a wise man among you. My days are past. My hopes have been torn away, my dearest possessions. Yet they, read you there, he's talking to these guys. They would transform night to day, saying in the face of darkness, light is here. They see as evil what has happened to Job, and it's a supreme goodness before Jesus came. And they see good, well, they see evil, what is happening to him, and call it good, and they see good, that is Job's life, and call that evil because they don't know. Though I yearn for Sheol to be my home, though I spread out my bed in the darkness, though I say to the pit, you are my father, to the worm, you are my mother or my sister, where is my hope? Why can't I die? Then Job, knowing that at some point God's justice is going to win out, says this to his friends, but who will see my hope? Not his friends, lest they repent. And he says, the bars of Sheol will collapse if we rest together in the dust. Job 18, Bildad gets bold then. Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, how long will you lay verbal traps? Be sensible, then we can talk. Why are we thought of as beasts? In your eyes we are stupid, as God tears his soul to pieces apart in his anger. In spite of all God's doing to him, he looks down on us. Has the earth been abandoned according to you, and the rock removed from his place? And that's a reference to what Job said in Job 9. The earth has been given into the hand of a wicked one. And he said other places too. Truly, he extinguishes the light of wicked men so that the flame of his fire does not shine. God's still in charge, Job, as we see with you. The light in his tent will go dark, as yours has. Yea, the lamp beside him will he extinguish. His strong steps will be hampered, and his own counsel will cast him down. Your foolish hope That you would get by with a secret sin has failed you, Job. Yea, he is cast into a net by his own feet. He walks on a mesh. A trap seizes him by the heel. A snare grabs him. His own cord is what is hidden in the earth, and his own trap on the path. Terrors on every side frighten him and hound him at his every step, just like Job, just like you admitted. Everything about you's gone bad. His strength is famished, and his calamity is at his side ready. It will devour his body parts. How yours doing, Job? The firstborn of death will devour his members. He will be torn away from his tent, his security, and marched off to the king of terrors. Nothing he owns will remain in his tent. Brimstone will be scattered upon his habitation, which is exactly what happened to Job in the first chapter. A man came in and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven." Wow. And burned up both the sheep and the young men and consumed them. That's what Bildad is saying here. Underneath his roots will dry up, and above his branches will wither. His memory will perish from the earth, and he will have no name abroad. They will drive him from the light into darkness and chase him away from the world. He will have no progeny or posterity among his people, nor any survivor in the places he lived, just like you, Job. Those to the west will be appalled at his day, and those to the east will be gripped with horror. Now Job said when the righteous hear about it, they're going to be appalled. He says when the righteous hear about it, they're going to be appalled. But what are they appalled at? Job said they're going to be appalled at the injustice of it all. He says they're going to be appalled that you held on to your sin through it all. But they all agree, whoever hears about it is going to be appalled. Surely such are the dwellings of an unjust man, such as you, Job. And such is the place of him who does not know God, like you, Job. And so it's not that Job disagrees in general with God going to punish the wicked and bless the righteous, but he knows Bildad is wrong by applying all those things in his case, because he's innocent. Then Job answered and said, "How long will you make my soul suffer and crush me with words? These 10 times you have insulted me. You shamelessly wrong me. But even if I have truly erred, my error would remain with me." In other words, if I have sinned, isn't what God has done to me enough that you should add anything to it? Though you indeed magnify yourselves against me and use my disgrace against me, know now that God has subverted me and wrapped his net around me. That's true. God undercut his whole life, tied him up, he can't get out. Jesus taught me through a very painful experience in 1988 that whatever God puts somebody through is enough. You don't want to add 1 ounce of pain to what God does to a person. That's the value of fellowship. Because when we have fellowship in the Lord, we see eye to eye, and we have the same mind, the same judgment, as Paul says, same love one for another. Our presence helps you bear whatever you're going through.
Yes.
That common you feel one another's burden. Bear one another's burden. Because everybody's going to have to bear their own, but you don't have to bear it alone. It's your burden, but if you got fellowship with the saints of God, you've got comfort. You've got strength. That's the evil of separating yourself from the fellowship of the body of Christ. When you do that, you make their life harder. You add to their burden. You make it easier for the world to overcome the brothers and the sisters. Should never, never separate yourself. There's never a good reason. It's like Darren's song says, there's never ever been a time when it was right to walk away.
Yeah.
Because just the feeling of our common love
That's true.
helps relieve the pressures of this world. It's valuable. It's valuable. Dig in deep to God, young people. Dig in deep and make yourself valuable to the body. Jesus said, if you just give a cup to one of my disciples in the name of a disciple, you'll receive a disciple's reward. He values the fellowship we have because He knows how valuable it is. It reminds me of Jimmy's dream about Brother Michael Hayes coming out of that courtroom. On Judgment Day, even if somebody in the body has done you wrong, misunderstood you, said something harsh to you, it's no excuse for leaving them on their own with the world. When Jimmy saw in this dream, Brother Michael Hayes, Jimmy was sitting outside the courtroom. He knew court cases were being done on the other side of those doors. Big doors, right, Jimmy? Tall doors. And then all of a sudden, Brother Michael Hayes had gone on to be with the Lord. And Michael Hayes came out of those doors. You say he was weeping?
Yeah, he was just spearing and sobbing, and he had his head down like that. He sit down beside me and was shaking his head.
Say it out loud.
He sat down beside me and he was just sobbing, and his hands was in his face like that. And I said, Brother Michael, what's going on in there? And then finally he shook his head like that and he looked around at me. He said, they just don't understand. When you go in there, there is no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way, or anything. He said, it's all over.
It's all, they can't hear you, so I'll tell you what he's saying. Brother Michael Hayes just said, there is no excuse. There is no excuse. There's no, I thought, or wish I had, or I'm sorry, or I thought I was. There is no, when you stand before God, you're going to be judged on what you have done.
Yes.
All your reasonings and all your excuses carry no weight beyond those doors. What have you done? Or what have you not done?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what you're going to be judged on. All the excuses matter on earth. They don't matter a bit before God.
No.
We're going to be judged, each one, we're told this 50 times in the Bible, according to your deeds, according to your works. How are you living? What are you saying? What are you refusing to say? How are you treating the brother? How are you treating the body? How are you treating Jesus?
Yes.
Who gave His life for you?
That's right.
That's what you're going to be judged by. Job said in verse 7, behold, I cry out, this is wrong, but I receive no answer. I cry out for help, but there is no justice. God, has walled up my path, and I cannot go on. Upon my paths He has laid darkness. He has stripped me of my glory and removed the crown from my head. He has broken me down on every side, and I am gone. He has uprooted my hope like a tree. His anger burns against me. He counts me as one of His enemies. In that thought, Job and his friends agreed perfectly. Job and his friends said God counts him as an enemy. He hates him. He's angry with him. But this is something you've never thought about. Satan didn't think that. Satan knew God did not count Job as an enemy. He had been in heaven with God. So God held him up as one of the finest human beings on the earth. Satan did not agree that God thought he was an enemy. It's just humans that were thinking that, because that's all they could think.
Yeah.
Told you never thought about that. My. Now, this is very interesting. I've done a lot of study in ancient Greek mythology and lifestyle, and Romans too, but Greeks in particular. And put yourself in Satan's mind. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay. Put yourself in Satan's mind. And you know that God thinks Job is about the finest thing on earth. Yet God sends you down there to do anything on earth bad you can do to him, and it's fine. That's how the ancient Greeks saw the gods. Great contempt for even the best of humans. Even if one god over here favored that person, or this god favored that person, they could play little mind games with them, play tricks on them, go down there and hurt them. It was just a supreme contempt for that race down there, even if they kind of liked some of them. That's where the Greeks got it from, because that's what Satan is seeing this. That's just, Job is just a human. He's going to curse you and die just like his wife's going to say. That's where it came from, Satan's spirit. Don't you know the Bible teaches that all those Greek gods and Roman gods and gods of Baal, all those were really demons? Yeah. And demons are just angels that are under Satan. Yeah. That's where it all came from, that ancient gods and how they looked at human beings and envied one another. And if you liked somebody they didn't like, they'd play tricks on them behind your back, and one of the gods would. That's where it came from. Then Job continues speaking of the true God. His troops come together and build up their ramp against me, like besieging a city. They encamp round about my tent. All that's true. God has sent persecutors, and they're surrounding Job, building weapons against him. And then Job gives us a description of how some people have treated him. He has removed my brothers far from me, and those who know me are wholly estranged from me. My kinsmen have ceased from me, and my familiar friends have forgotten me. Those who stay in my home, even my maidservants, think of me as a stranger. I am a foreigner in their eyes. I summon my servant, and he does not answer. With my mouth I implore him. My breath is loathsome to my wife, and I am disgusting to the children of my mother's womb, my brothers and sisters. Even little boys despise me. I rise up, and they speak against me. All my intimate friends abhor me, and those I love have turned against me. My bone clings to my skin and my flesh, and I am escaped with the skin of my teeth. That's how they had nobody. Nobody. Have pity on me. That's what he thinks his friends ought to be doing, is having pity on him. Have pity on me. Have pity on me, you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why are you hounding me like God and not satisfied with my flesh? His friends are hounding him like God. But they're hounding him like God because God has sent Satan down with authority to give his friends wicked wisdom to hound Job with. They are hounding him like God. And Job knows it. Oh, that my words were written down. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book with iron stylus and lead, that they were forever engraved in a rock. Well, we're still reading about it. Yet I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the end he shall stand upon the earth. And afterward, when this skin they have destroyed, though without my flesh, I shall see God. And I want to ask him what he was up to. Now, when he does see God, he's going to know. But that's what he thinks. Whom I shall see for myself, yea, my own eyes shall see him, and none other. My reins within my bosom fail, though you men think, how have we hounded him? And that the root of the matter is found with me. And that's exactly what they thought. They thought they were doing good. They thought they were trying to get Job to do good. And they did think the problem was with Job. He wouldn't admit his sin. His secret, unknown sin. But he says, you yourselves should be afraid of the sword. For wrath brings the punishments of the sword so that you might know what judgment is. In other words, all that stuff you say, I deserve, is really what you deserve because you're the ones doing evil, not me. Well, that provoked Zohar to speak up. Zophar. The Naamathite answered and said, to that end, my troubled thoughts compel me to answer. Yea, I am provoked within. You'll see why he's provoked within in a minute. I keep hearing correction is an insult to me. But listen, a spirit beyond my understanding is giving me a reply. He's experiencing something and hearing something that's giving him an answer to what Job is saying. Giving him wisdom beyond himself. It's a wisdom that knows how to drive the knife in farther. And he's very confident that this is God speaking because it did come from God. Through Satan to him. Do you not know this? That from old, when man was placed upon the earth, the joyful shouting of wicked man is short, and the gladness of a profane man is but for a moment, like yours, Job. Though his arrogance mount up to heaven, and his head touch the clouds, he will perish like his own dung forever. Those who have seen him will say, where is he? Like a dream, he will fly away, and they will not find him. Yea, he is chased away like a vision in the night. The eye that gazed on him will not again do so. Yea, will no longer behold him in his place. His children will seek favor from the poor, for his hands relinquish his wealth, the way yours have, Job. His bones may be full of youthful vigor, but they will lie down with him in the dust. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, he hides it under his tongue, the way you've been hiding yours, Job. He cherishes it, that's the evil, and will not forsake it, but holds it on his palate. His food and his bowels is turned within him into the poison of venomous serpents. Start talking about Job's stomach problems now. He swallows down wealth, but vomits it up out of his belly. God dispossesses him. He sucks down the poison of venomous serpents. The viper's tongue will kill him. Then, this is very interesting, in imitation of Job, who often has just stopped the conversation and just poured out his heart to God, didn't he? Talking directly to God instead of to man. Zophar tries that. He stops the conversation with Job and turns to God with a prayer. Let him not see the streams, the flowing rivers of honey and curds. And then, as if God gave him an immediate answer, he begins speaking on God's behalf, as if these words came from God himself, probably came from Satan himself. He will give back his labor. That's God answering his prayer, see. Yea, he will not swallow it down, nor will he rejoice in his wealth gained by trade, for he has crushed, he has abandoned destitute people. He has taken violent possession of a house and will not build it up. See, Zophar now is revealing Job's sin to everybody, because Job's not biting. Yea, he will know no quietness in his belly. His stomach problems, the vomiting, the diarrhea, the pain, it's going to keep on going. With his selfish desire, he will not escape. Nothing will remain for him to eat. Because his prosperity is not secure, at the height of his boasting, he will be distressed. All the power of misery will come upon him. When he would fill his belly, God sends his burning anger into him, and it rains upon him in his very bowels. Does that sound familiar, Job? How your bowels feeling right now? He will flee from a weapon of iron. No way to escape God's justice. A bronze bow will pierce him through. He drew it out, and it has gone through his body. Yea, the glittering point has gone through his gallbladder. Terrors come over him. Every darkness is laid up for his treasures. An unfanned fire will feed on him. It will consume what remains in his tent. Heaven will expose his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him as a result. Heaven and earth are going to testify against you, Job. Heaven, when the fire came down, and then all of this happens to you, and earth, when all the earth that knows God's against you. Heaven and earth are telling you you're wrong. And Job said, I'm going to hold on to my righteousness. The possessions in his house will be carried off, flowing away in the day of wrath, his wrath, God's wrath, as God has done to you, Job. This is an evil man's portion from God, and the inheritance decreed for him by God. Now Job's thinking, all that may be true, but what does that have to do with me? Then Job answered and said, listen keenly to my speech, and let it be your consolation. In other words, go ahead and consider me a joke, and just let this be what you enjoy. Put up with me while I speak, and after I have spoken, continue your mockery. I'm not budging from the truth. I'm not budging from my righteousness, so go ahead and enjoy yourself while I talk. Is my complaint to a man? Then why should my spirit not be vexed? Man can't help me. I'm not talking to man. God can help me, but He won't, and you're not helping me find out why He won't. Why shouldn't I feel miserable when God won't answer me? Look at me and be appalled. This is the third time that appalled word shows up. And Job says, look at me. Look at my body. Smell it. Look at me. Let this, isn't this enough punishment for whatever you think I've done? Look at me and be appalled, and lay your hands upon your mouth. If I even think on it, I am dismayed, and trembling seizes my flesh. And then Job points out a lesson, that good things happen to wicked people a lot. And that's unjust too. Why do the wicked keep on living? They grow old. They grow mighty in power. Their seed, their children are established with them in their presence, and their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear, and the rod of God is not upon them the way it's upon me. And they're wicked. His bull breeds without fail. His cow bears calves and does not miscarry. They send out their little ones like a flock. Yea, their offspring skip about. They sing to the timbrel and lyre, rejoice to the sound of a pipe. They spend their days in plenteousness, and then go down to Sheol in an instant. They just have a heart attack and die. They don't suffer the way I'm suffering. This is the wicked. They have pleasures, some of them, their whole life. And then they die. And it's over. And yet they say to God, leave us. We have no desire for the knowledge of your ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve Him? And what would we gain if we entreat Him? But behold, their prosperity is not in their hand. It's in God's hand. He's the one who blesses them. The counsel of wicked men is far from me. I'm not like them, and God is treating me like this. He's treating me as if I'm a wicked man, giving me what a wicked man deserves. How often the lamp of wicked men is put out and their calamity comes upon them. That happens too. He distributes pains in His anger the way He's doing me. They are like straw before the wind, and like chaff that the storm wind sweeps away. God stores up his iniquity for his children. He recompenses him that he might consider. And I'm trying to consider what is happening to me, but I don't know what to think. Help me. His own eyes will see his ruin. He will drink the wrath of the Almighty as I'm doing. But why? But he's not drinking God's wrath. That's the wrong thought. God's not angry with Job. Well, is this confusing or what?
So quick question. 19, when he said God stores up his iniquity for his children, that's him saying God stores up the wicked man's iniquity for the wicked man's children,
right.
So that his children will consider, I guess, right?
He recompenses him that he might consider. Whoever he recompenses their sin for is that they might think about it and repent. Was that your question?
Yeah.
This is not God's wrath on Job. This is God's greatest blessing before he sent his Son on earth. It's a blessing that transcends all earthly circumstances. It's worth suffering. It's a blessing that is so great. I mean, Job becomes a legend in heaven. 1,000 years later, the prophet Ezekiel is moved by the Holy Ghost to mention Job along with other men that God has at the top rank of just in his view. It doesn't sound like a blessing, does it? But it's the blessing God had in mind. Transcends every earthly circumstance. It's worth suffering whatever pain you have to go through, whatever persecution you have to go through, to have God love you like this. The way he loved his Son is worth everything. Paul said this. He felt this way. I consider the sufferings of this present time to be unworthy of comparison with the glory that shall be revealed to us. Job's happy he went through this today. Today, Job is praising God and thanking him for visiting him and the misery he put him through. I hope Jesus is doing the same thing when he sees you. They see, Father, yeah, you were right. I'm sorry I prayed for you not to do that. He prayed for God not to have you. But then he said, not my will, but thine be done. Praise God. And what will the rich man or the wicked man care about his house after him when the number of his months are cut short? And Job's friends are sitting there thinking, that's what we've been trying to tell you. Would he teach God knowledge, seeing that God judges those on high, much less on earth? And his friends are thinking, that's what we've been trying to tell you. Because they're all saying it. One may die in his full strength. Talking about a wicked man. Altogether at ease and prosperous, his buckets full of milk and the marrow of his bones moist, while another may die in bitterness of soul, not having tasted prosperity. Together do they lie in the dust, and the worm covers them. That is to say, the same thing happens to the just and the unjust. Bad things happen to the just, good things happen to the just, bad things happen to the unjust, good things happen to the unjust. This world is a mixed bag. I just don't want to know why I'm going through what I'm going through. That's what Jesus said too in Matthew 5. God makes his sun to rise upon the evil and the good, and sends rain upon the just and the unjust. Behold, I know your thoughts, and you do great wrong with your imaginations against me. All those guesses about what kind of sin he had were imagination. For you say, where is the house of the princely man, and where is the tent of the wicked, where the wicked live? Have you not asked those who travel the road? Do you not accept their reports that in the day of calamity an evil man may be spared, or is spared? And in the day of wrath, they are brought out safely. Don't you know that? He's trying hard to remind them good things happen to wicked people, and awfully bad stuff has happened to me, a righteous man. Who exposes the wicked man's way to his face, and who recompenses him for what he has done? Nobody, unless God chooses to. And then, when he's dead, he is borne to a stately grave. Vigil is kept at his tomb, and is whitewashed, is made beautiful, and the clods of the valley are pleasant to him. The death of the wicked can be grandiose. And all mankind will follow after him, as there were innumerable before him. It's just the way of all the earth. It's appointed unto man once to die, and there's no way, there's no discharge in that war. So, how can you comfort me with empty nothings? Yea, falsehood remains in your answers. Then Eliphaz the Temanite tries again, third time. Is a man profitable to God? No. He who is wise is profitable to himself. Well, Job would agree with that. Is it the Almighty's delight that you are righteous? Or is it a benefit to Him that you make your ways perfect? Job would say no, of course, but it was God's delight that he was righteous. Is He reproving you out of fear of you? Job would say no, but can you tell me why He's reproving me? But God wasn't reproving him, so Eliphaz couldn't tell him why. He has entered into judgment with you. And Job would say, I know that, but why? But God had not entered into judgment with Job, so Eliphaz couldn't tell him why. And again, let me remind you, Satan didn't agree with Job or his friends. He knew God had not entered into judgment with Job. He knew Job was a perfect and upright man, one that feared God and eschewed evil. God said so to Satan twice. So he didn't agree with any one of these pitiful human beings. He was probably just enjoying watching, waiting to see if Job would do what he thought he would do. Are you not very evil? Yea, there is no end to your iniquities. Now, Job knew that wasn't true. And Job and Satan agreed with that, because Satan knew Job had not sinned. Don't have a bad attitude towards Satan. He agreed with Job when he said the right thing. Eliphaz then attempts, he grabs a whole handful of gravel and throws it into the dark, where Job's life was hidden with God. One of them's going to hit him. You have taken a pledge from your brothers for nothing. Job didn't answer. You have stripped the naked of their garments. Job didn't answer. You've not given drink to the weary. You've withheld food from the hungry. For the earth belongs to the mighty man which you once were, and the privileged man occupies. In other words, you did these things because you had the power to do it, and you didn't believe in God's justice. But in the beginning of the book, God said to Satan that Job feared him. So Satan didn't believe any of that either. You have sent widows away empty. Job didn't answer. You leaving the arms of orphans shattered. Job didn't break and say, yes, you're right, I did it. That is why snares are all about you, and sudden terror overwhelms you, or darkness so that you cannot see, and a flood of waters covers you. Job didn't answer. Is not God in the height of heaven? Then look at the high stars, how lofty they are. But you say, what does God know? Can He judge from behind a cloud? Clouds are a veil to Him, so that He does not see. He just walks about on the vault of the heaven. So He's saying instead of seeing, look at the stars and being impressed about how much greater God is than we are, you're thinking, well, God's way off, so I can get by with anything. That's what you think, Job. Will you keep to the old path which wicked men walked, who were snatched away when before the time their foundation was taken away by a flood, who were saying to God, depart from us? But what was the Almighty doing to them? Yes, He filled their houses with good, just as He did yours, Job. But then what did God do to them? And what has He done to you? The counsel of evil men is also far from me. Now he's mocking what Job said back in chapter 21 when he said the counsel of wicked men is far from me. Eliphaz says, no, the counsel of wicked men is far from me. That's a bad feeling. It reminds me of the time after Jesus spoke to me in 1981 about the sacrifice of Christ. That was before then. And I was trying to tell Barbara's uncle about, I was excited to understand the sacrifice of Christ. And he had made himself out to be a minister, built himself his own little building, and nobody ever came, but that's what he thought about himself. And I was explaining to him what about the sacrifice of Christ. He said, I don't believe it. I said, but God revealed this to me. And you know what he said? He did what Eliphaz said. He said, he copied me. He said, well, God revealed this to me. Man, you talk about a bad feeling. Where do you go from there? It got to where, after a while, I've said this several times, I'd rather tear a hole in a new pair of pants than talk to that man about God. When you cast your pearl before swine, it's an awful feeling.
Yes, it is.
I thought human intelligence would get him to see it. And that's not how it comes.
No, it's not.
I can make all the sense in the world tonight, and if you don't hear something from Jesus yourself, you're not going to take it in. No. You're not going to believe it. You can't. We cannot take in the things of God with the human brain. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. It is every bit revealed by the Spirit of God. And if you have the Spirit of God, pray that you're hearing what it's saying to you. Because if you hear what it's saying to you, you are blessed. I can do a lousy job of explaining it. You can get it if you're hearing the Holy Ghost. It doesn't depend on me. It depends on you and Jesus. I don't have a thing to do with that. Praise God. The righteous see and rejoice the fall of the wicked. I am righteous, and I'm rejoicing at your fall. Now you may learn something of God. And the innocent man mocks them. We, the righteous and innocent, are mocking you, Job, for your good. You mocked God by thinking you could get away with some secret sin, so we're mocking you to see how you've made God feel. May God damn me. Now Job has already said that. Now, so he's mocking Job again. May God damn me if our adversary will not be destroyed, and fire will consume their remnant. Your damnation is sure, Job, for being an adversary to the truth we're telling you. Repent and accept the mercies of God. Escape the damnation of God. Acquaint yourself with Him. I beseech you, and be at peace. Thereby you get rich again. Prosperity will come to you. Receive instruction, I beg you, from His mouth. Well, that's what Job wants, but God won't open it. And lay up His words in your heart. And Job said, if you give me His words, I will.
Yeah.
If you repent, if you return to the Almighty, you will be built up. If you put wrong far from your tent. Just lay your gold in the dust and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the walls. Now, he's guessing that Job's problem is love of money. Then the Almighty will be your gold pieces and your heaps of silver. Yea, then you will take great delight in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. You will make supplication to Him and He will hear you. And you will pay your vows. You will, listen to this, you will decide a matter and He will confirm it for you. As a judge, Job was one of the judges who sat in the gate, the elders of the city. Official transactions took place there. And you will decide a matter and He'll confirm it for you, and light will shine in your ways. You sit in the gate again as an honored elder. When men are brought low and you say, lift them up, that's your judicial verdict. You win your case, lift him up, then God will save the humble man. He will even deliver one who is not innocent. Even he will be delivered because of the cleanness of your hands. In other words, God will stand behind your decisions, regardless of what they are, so that the people will know He is with you. Now, don't shake your head at that. We have biblical stories that show that is true. You remember them. You just haven't thought of them that way. I thought of two others today. I've gone blank now, but you remember these two. One of them is in Numbers 21, I think, 21, when God told Moses to speak to the rock. He'd already told him to hit the rock at Mount Sinai, but this is 38, 39 years later. Yeah, well, some years later. He told him, speak to this rock. And Moses was so angry with God's people that he didn't speak to the rock. He didn't honor God. He hit the rock again. Nothing happened. Then he hit it again, and then God honored Moses. God honored Moses more that day, more than Moses honored God. Because anybody in Moses' place is going to make enemies among God's people. He'd do righteous judgment. The unrighteous among God's people are not going to like you. And if God had dishonored Moses and he had failed, what do you think those rebels would have done to Moses and Israel? So for the sake of His people, God honored Moses even though Moses dishonored God. Now Moses paid for that personally. But before all the people, God honored Moses when he disobeyed Him, so that He could keep the rebellious under control. Second example. God told King Saul to go wipe out the Amalekites over in a certain area. He disobeyed God. He waited. Samuel told him to wait 7 days and to make a sacrifice. He disobeyed God. And Samuel came and got on him and said, because you have rejected God. This is about when he offered a sacrifice instead of waiting for Samuel to get there. Because you have rejected God, God has rejected you from being king of my people. Now everybody was gathered there. All the tribes were gathered for that big sacrifice that Samuel was a little bit late getting to. And King Saul disobeyed God by not waiting for Samuel. And Samuel said, I'm not going to eat with you. Now, if God's people had seen the prophet Samuel walk off from that feast and refuse to even eat with King Saul, there would have been big problems among God's people. Because there was an authority there that God set, King Saul, that they didn't like, some of them, and the rebellious would have risen up against him, probably killed him. And King Saul begged Samuel, said, please, eat with me in front of these people. And Samuel said, okay. You've rejected God. I know that. These people don't know that. I know that. And God has rejected you, but for the sake of appearances, I'll eat the feast with you. I wish I could remember the other examples I thought, but they're all the way through the scriptures.
Well, one would be Hezekiah with the unclean people from the north, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, God honored. Well, I'm talking about people in authority. They were just normal people. They had disobeyed the law. They didn't even know the law. They didn't even know they were disobeying the law. They were just ignorant, and God excused them. So, when Eliphaz tells Job, God will stand behind you even when you say, make a wrong judgment, there may be some truth to that, depending on the circumstances. So don't shake your head too fast. Oh, Eliphaz isn't stupid. He's seen some things in his life. Then Job answered and said, I think we're in 23 now, aren't we? Then Job answered and he's, Job in this chapter is just talking into the air. Eliphaz has spoken 3 times now. He doesn't even respond to it. He just starts talking. Today also my complaint is bitter. My hand is heavy because of my groaning. Ah, that I knew where I might find him. I would go to his house. I would lay out my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words that he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me with his great power? No. But he would pay attention to me. Job knows that even if he has sinned, God would be kind to him. He'd be merciful. He wouldn't treat him the way everybody's treated him. Of course, everybody has been deluded by Satan to do that. Paul told the saints in Philippi the same thing. Let as many as are perfect think this way, and if you think any other way, God will reveal even this to you. You can trust God to let you know if you've done something wrong. And if you miss it, He'll put it on my heart to tell you missed it. It's up to you to fix it or not. Or He'll put it on a brother's heart. He may put it on your little baby's heart to do something to trigger something where you've missed God. God is good. He's for you. He is determined to save you. And He will let you know if you're going off on the right. He wants you more than you want it. You can trust your Heavenly Father. He's a good guy. There, in verse 7, that's wherever He could be found, at God's house or wherever. This upright man might reason with him and be delivered forever from my judge. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there. Backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand where he is working, but I cannot behold him. He is hiding himself on the right hand so that I cannot see him. Still, he knows how it is with me. And when he has tried me, I will come forth like gold. I'm going to hold on to my righteousness even if I die. And that's exactly what God does not want him to do. But who would ever have such a thought as that? Nobody on earth even understood Isaiah when he said, all our righteousness is as filthy rags. Job's righteousness was as filthy rags to God. But it wasn't time for God's righteousness to be revealed. So he understood. It's like Paul said in Acts 17 to the crowd there at Athens. He said, in time past, God winked at a lot of stuff. But now, since His Son is revealed, He commands everywhere, every man to repent. My foot has held fast to His steps. This is such backward thinking. My foot has held fast to His steps, and your fleshly, natural mind says, go, Job, hold on.
Yeah.
The carnal, The carnal mind is contrary to the mind of Christ. It is not subject to the law of God, Paul said in Romans 8, nor can it be. If you need to be delivered from anything, it's what you think.
Yeah.
Amen. Right. Every day.
Your biggest enemy is not the devil, it's what your carnal mind still thinks about God. And that's why Jesus sent the Holy Ghost back. Be conformed to the image of, be renewed in your mind. We have, Paul said, the mind of Christ. So when we read, when the mind of Christ reads verse 11, my foot has held fast to his steps. The mind of Christ says, turn loose, Job. Glory to God. Turn loose, Job. Let God bless you the way He wants to. I have kept His way and have not turned aside. Turn away, Job. Nor have I departed from the commandment of His lips. I have treasured the words of His mouth more than my necessary food. He's not getting anything from him now, is he? Because God wants to take him beyond that. But he is of one mind, and who can turn him? Truly, he does whatever he desires, which is what Paul said. Well, he was desiring to do this to Job. The only issue is why. Yea, he will finish what is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. That is why I am dismayed at his presence. I think on it and fear before him. Yea, God has made my heart faint. Yea, the Almighty has terrified me. Nevertheless, I am not silenced by the darkness, though he has covered my face with thick darkness. Wow. That was true. God had done that. But why?
Jesus came to this earth. In every way he was his Father's son, and by his death came the new